The moving truck in my driveway shouldn't have been there. I was standing in the ICU hallway at Riverside Medical, watching my mother's heart monitor beep steadily through the glass window, when Mrs. Chen's call shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. "Sarah, dear, I don't want to alarm you, but there's a Mayflower truck at your house and strange people carrying out your furniture. My name is Sarah Chen Morrison, and for 8 years, I believed my husband Derek when he said we were building our future together. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below. If something like this has happened to you, share your experience in the comments. Before we continue, please hit that like button. It really helps share these important stories. And subscribe if you want to hear more stories of justice being served. But what Derek didn't know was that my father owned the bank that held every single one of his business loans. And in exactly 72 hours, his entire empire would come crashing down around him while he stood in a courtroom and literally fainted from the shock. I fumbled with my phone, nearly dropping it as I pulled up our security app with trembling fingers. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m., March 15th, 2024. There was Derek, my husband of 8 years, directing movers as they carried out our bedroom set, the one we'd picked out together for our 5th anniversary. But that wasn't what made my blood turn to ice. It was the pregnant woman standing next to him, her hand resting on her swollen belly as she measured the windows with a tape measure. Our windows, in our bedroom. She was young, maybe 25, with the kind of blonde highlights that cost $500 at the salon Derek always said we couldn't afford. I knew her face, Brittany, his assistant at Morrison Construction, the one he'd hired 7 months ago because she was so efficient with the books. "Mom, I have to go," I whispered to my unconscious mother, kissing her forehead gently. She'd been in a coma for 3 weeks after the car accident, and Derek had insisted I stay with her. "Take all the time you need, baby," he'd said, holding me as I sobbed in our kitchen. "Your mom needs you. I'll handle everything here." I remembered thinking how lucky I was to have such a supportive husband. The drive from the hospital to our house in Westchester should have taken 40 minutes. I made it in 25, my hands gripping the steering wheel of my Mercedes so tight my knuckles went white. The whole time, I kept refreshing the security app, watching strangers dismantle 8 years of my life piece by piece. When I pulled into our cul-de-sac, the moving truck was still there, "Making your move easier," painted in cheerful blue letters on its side. I parked behind it, blocking it in, and walked up to my own front door. My key didn't work. The locks had been changed. On my own house. The house my grandmother's inheritance had helped us buy. The house where we'd planned to raise children. The house I'd spent 3 years renovating. Choosing every tile, every paint color, every fixture. I rang the doorbell like a stranger. Derek answered, and for a moment, his face went completely white. Then, like watching a mask slide into place, his expression shifted to annoyance. "Sarah, what are you doing here? You should be with your mother." Behind him, I could see Brittany in my living room, directing movers as they wrapped my grandmother's china cabinet. She was wearing the Hermes scarf I thought I'd lost last Christmas. "What are you doing, Derek?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Why are there movers in our house?" He sighed like I was a child asking a stupid question. "Don't be dramatic, Sarah. We talked about this. The house sold. We're downsizing, remember? The market's perfect right now. We had never talked about this, never. I would remember discussing selling the house I loved more than any possession I owned. You're confused because you've been stressed about your mom. Look, just go back to the hospital. We'll talk about this later. The locks are changed, Derek. For the new owners. Come on, don't make a scene in front of everyone." He glanced back at Brittany, who was now watching us, with her hand protectively over her belly. Brittany's helping me coordinate the move. You know you're not good with logistics when you're emotional. That's when I saw it. My wedding ring. The one I'd taken off at the hospital, so I could scrub in to hold my mother's hand during emergency surgery, sitting on Brittany's finger. My grandmother's 2-carat diamond, reset in platinum for my wedding, catching the afternoon light on another woman's hand. Is that my ring? Derek's jaw clenched. You lost it, remember? At the hospital. I had it replicated for when you got back. Brittany's just holding it for safekeeping. Can you believe he said that? Let me know in the comments. The lie was so bold, so breathtaking in its audacity, that I actually laughed. A sharp, bitter sound that made several movers look our way. Derek, I need to get some things from the house. My mother's medical papers. They're in the office. I'll get them for you. No, I'll get them myself. It's still my house. I pulled out my phone. Or should I call the police and tell them you're illegally evicting me from my own home? His face darkened, but Brittany called out from behind him, Just let her get her stuff, baby. We're on a schedule. Baby. She called my husband baby in my house, wearing my ring. While 7 months pregnant, Derek stepped aside, and I walked into what had been my home that morning. Everything was being wrapped, boxed, labeled. 8 years of memories being sorted into keep and donate piles by strangers. I went straight to the office, where I knew Derek kept his files. My hands were steady now, my mind crystal clear. I wasn't going for medical papers. I was going for evidence. The filing cabinet was already empty, but Derek was nothing if not predictable. I went to his hiding spot, a hollowed-out copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad on the bookshelf. Inside, instead of the cash he usually kept there, I found documents, real estate documents, with my signature on them, except I'd never signed them. The forgery was good, but not perfect. My name was spelled correctly, but the signature itself was wrong. Too loopy, too careful, like someone had traced it. The sale date was March 1st. 2 weeks ago, while I was sleeping in the hospital chair next to my dying mother. I took photos of everything. Then I found more. Credit card statements for cards I didn't know existed, all maxed out. Receipts from Tiffany's, dated 6 months ago. A lease agreement for a penthouse in Manhattan, signed 4 months ago. Monthly payments to Brittany as a consultant for $15,000. Screenshots of texts. She's so stupid, she'll never figure it out. Once her mom dies, she'll be too grief-stricken to fight the divorce. The baby's due in 2 months. We need to move fast. My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. You have 5 minutes, then you need to leave. This isn't your house anymore. I screenshotted that too. 3 days later, I was sitting in my father's office at Meridian National Bank. Richard Chen was many things. Distant, workaholic, emotionally unavailable, but he was not a man who tolerated disrespect toward his family. He'd built his bank from nothing, turning it into one of the most powerful private banks on the East Coast. Derek had always resented him, called him controlling, manipulative. Your father thinks he owns everyone, Derek would say after family dinners. Just because he has money doesn't mean he can control our lives. Did you know, my father said, his voice dangerously quiet, that your husband owes my bank $4.7 million? I stared at him. Derek's construction company did well, but not that well. Business loans, all personally guaranteed. Some of them, he paused, sliding documents across his mahogany desk, have very interesting signatures on them. Yours, for instance. I looked at the papers. More forgeries. My name as co-signer on loans I'd never seen. Daddy, he sold our house. While Mom is dying, he sold our house and moved his pregnant girlfriend in. My father's face didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Pregnant girlfriend? His assistant, Brittany, 7 months pregnant. They're living in a penthouse in Manhattan now. He forged my signature on the sale documents. I showed him the photos I'd taken. He's been planning this for months, maybe longer. My father was quiet for a long moment, then picked up his phone. Patricia, clear my afternoon and get the forensic accounting team up here. Yes, all of them. He hung up and looked at me. Sarah, do you trust me? Yes. Then go back to the hospital. Be with your mother. Let me handle this. He stood, walking around the desk to pull me into a rare hug. He made 3 mistakes, sweetheart. He stole from you. He hurt you while your mother is dying. And he forgot who your father is. What would you have done at this point? The next 2 weeks were a blur of hospital visits and secret meetings. Patricia Winters, one of New York's most ruthless divorce attorneys, took my case. The forensic accountants found everything: phantom invoices, money laundering through construction projects that never existed, over $2 million, siphoned from joint accounts I didn't even know we had. Derek had been planning this for over a year, maybe more. The affair with Brittany had been going on for 18 months. The baby she was carrying, conceived while I was going through IVF treatments, wondering why I couldn't get pregnant. He'd had a vasectomy, secretly, while telling me we should keep trying. The most painful discovery came from my father's investigator. Photos of Derek and Brittany at the Ritz-Carlton, dated from our 7th anniversary, the night he'd said he was stuck in Boston on a construction delay. Receipts from Cartier for a tennis bracelet I'd never received. Business trips that were really romantic getaways. And worse, emails to his brother. Sarah's too stupid to figure it out. Her daddy's money will set us up for life once I get rid of her. But I had to play the part. If Derek knew what was coming, he'd hide assets, maybe even leave the country. So I called him, crying, begging him to reconsider. Please, Derek, I'll do anything. I'll sign whatever you want. Just please, can we talk? Have you ever been gaslit like this? His response was textbook narcissist. Sarah, you're being hysterical. This is why I had to take control. You're not capable of making rational decisions. Look at you. Your mother's dying, and instead of being with her, you're harassing me about a house. It's just property, Sarah. Brittany understands that. She understands what really matters. I recorded every call, every cruel word, every admission. The house was in both our names, Derek. How did you sell it without me? You signed the papers, remember? Before you left for the hospital. You were so stressed about your mom, you probably forgot. The lie was so smooth, so practiced. Look, I did you a favor. That house was too big for just you anyway. After your mom passes and we divorce, you'll want something smaller. I've already set aside some money for you. $50,000. That's more than fair. $50,000 from the sale of a $3 million house. I bit my tongue so hard, I tasted blood. You're right. I'm being emotional. Can we meet to talk about the divorce? I want this to be amicable. That's my girl. See? When you're rational, everything's easier. Come by the penthouse tomorrow. Brittany will be at her prenatal appointment. We can talk privately. The penthouse was everything Derek had always wanted, and I'd always found tacky. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture that prioritized form over comfort, a kitchen that had never seen a home-cooked meal. He answered the door in a Tom Ford suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary, looking every inch the successful businessman he pretended to be with other people's money. You look tired, Sarah. How's your mother? The fake concern in his voice made my skin crawl. The same. Derek, I need to understand something. The loans from Meridian National Bank, the ones for your business. His face went very still. How do you know about those? My father's bank, Derek. Did you really think he wouldn't tell me? I watched him calculate, could see the wheels turning behind his eyes. Those are business loans. Nothing to do with you. With my signature on them? You signed those. We discussed it. The same smooth lie, the same gaslighting. You agreed to help the business grow. For our future. Our future? The one where you're having a baby with your assistant? He actually smiled. Brittany's different, Sarah. She gets me. She supports my ambitions. She doesn't have daddy issues that make her suspicious of everything I do. I pulled out my phone, pretending to check a message. In reality, I was recording. So, you've been with her for how long? Does it matter? Our marriage has been over for years. You just didn't want to see it. Too busy playing daddy's little princess, running to him every time we had a fight. Do you know how emasculating it was? Having your father lord his money over me? Acting like I wasn't good enough for his precious daughter? So, you decided to steal from me? Steal? He laughed. I took what I earned. 8 years of putting up with your family, your insecurities, your constant need for validation. That house, that money, I earned every penny. And honestly, Brittany deserves it more than you do. She's giving me what you never could. A baby? A life. A real life. Not some frozen, perfect existence where everything has to be approved by Daddy. He moved closer, and I could smell his cologne, the same one he'd worn on our wedding day. Sign the divorce papers, Sarah. Take the $50,000 and walk away. It's more than you deserve. If you're still watching, hit that like button. I signed the papers he put in front of me. Why? Because my lawyer had told me to. Let him think he's won, Patricia had said. The divorce papers mean nothing if the assets are fraudulent. And when the criminal charges hit, everything changes. That was Thursday. On Friday, at exactly 3 p.m., Derek's world began to crumble. Every loan from Meridian National Bank was called in. Simultaneously, $4.7 million, due in 72 hours. The way my father had structured the loans, buried in the fine print Derek had never read, gave the bank the right to accelerate payment if any fraud was detected. And was fraud detected? Derek's first call came at 3:07. I didn't answer. His second at 3:09, then 3:12, 3:15, 3:18. By 3:30, he'd called 17 times and left 6 increasingly panicked voicemails. Sarah, what's happening? The bank is calling in the loans. This has to be a mistake. Call me back. Then, I know you're doing this. Your father's doing this. This is illegal. You can't do this. Then, please, Sarah, please. The business will collapse. I'll lose everything. Think about Brittany. Think about the baby. Finally. You fucking bitch. You've ruined everything. I'll destroy you for this. I screenshotted every text, saved every voicemail. Evidence for the restraining order Patricia was already preparing. By Monday morning, Derek's construction company was in free fall. Without the bank's credit lines, he couldn't pay his contractors. Projects ground to a halt. His business partners, smelling blood in the water, distanced themselves immediately. The country club called to inform him his membership was suspended for non-payment. The lease on the penthouse, it turned out, required proof of income. When the management company learned about the loan default, they started eviction proceedings. But the best part? Share this with someone who needs to hear it. The best part was when Brittany found out. She called me on Monday afternoon crying. Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. He told me you were separated. He told me you were crazy, that you were abusive. He said the divorce was almost final. I didn't know about the forgery. I didn't know about any of it. You're wearing my wedding ring, Brittany. He said you threw it at him. He said you didn't want it anymore. She was sobbing now. I'm 7 months pregnant. What am I supposed to do? I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. That's not my problem, Brittany. But here's some free advice. Get a paternity test. What? Why would I? Of course it's Derek's baby. Is it? Because Derek had a vasectomy 2 years ago. I found the medical records. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, a whispered, "Oh my God." Tuesday was the emergency hearing for my restraining order. Derek walked into the courtroom with a cheap lawyer, the kind who advertises on bus stops. I walked in with Patricia Winters and a team of associates. Derek still had that cocky smile, that unshakable confidence that had once attracted me to him. He winked at me as he sat down. Actually winked. Like this was all some game we were playing. Patricia started with the evidence, the forged signatures, blown up on a screen for everyone to see. The forensic accountant's testimony about the stolen funds. The audio recordings of Derek admitting to taking what he earned. His text messages about my stupidity. The voicemails threatening to destroy me. With each piece of evidence, I watched Derek's lawyer's face grow paler. I watched Derek's smile fade, replaced by confusion, then anger, then fear. When Patricia played the recording from the penthouse, I took what I earned. 8 years of putting up with your family. Derek stood up. That's taken out of context. She trapped me. She set me up. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense, looked at him over her glasses. Mr. Morrison, sit down or I'll have you removed. This is her father. He's using his influence. This is about money and power. Mr. Morrison, you're accused of forgery, fraud, and theft. Are you saying you didn't forge your wife's signature? She would have signed if she'd been there. That's not how the law works, Mr. Morrison. That's when the prosecutor stood up. Oh yes, did I mention? The district attorney's office had taken an interest in the case. Forgery, fraud, over $1 million, identity theft. These weren't civil matters anymore. They were criminal. Your Honor, the state would like to add charges of money laundering and embezzlement to Mr. Morrison's case. Derek's face went from red to white, so fast I thought he might faint. His lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but Derek wasn't listening. He was staring at me, and for the first time in 8 years, I saw him clearly. Not the charming man who'd swept me off my feet, not the successful businessman he pretended to be, but a small, petty thief who thought he could steal my life and walk away. Furthermore, the prosecutor continued, we've found evidence of similar forgeries involving 3 other women Mr. Morrison dated before his marriage. That's when Derek fainted. Actually collapsed, right there in the courtroom. The bailiff caught him before he hit the floor, and paramedics were called. As they carried him out on a stretcher, Brittany walked in, 7 months pregnant, mascara streaming down her face, holding documents. I want to testify, she said. Comment below if you saw this coming. It turned out Derek had forged Brittany's signature too. On apartment leases, on car loans, on credit cards she didn't know existed. She wasn't his accomplice. She was another victim. The baby? A one-night stand with a bartender when she'd thought Derek was traveling. She'd been so terrified of Derek finding out, she'd never questioned the timeline. My mother woke up 3 days after the hearing. The first thing she said was, "Where's Sarah?" When I told her everything, the house, Derek, the trial, she held my hand and said, "You found your strength, my warrior. I'm so proud of you." She died 2 days later, peacefully, with me holding her hand. Derek tried to come to the funeral. He actually showed up at the church, in his Tom Ford suit, with flowers. My cousins escorted him out before he made it past the vestibule. The restraining order was very clear, 500 feet at all times. The criminal trial took 6 months. 6 months of evidence, testimonies, and revelations. Derek had been running his scam for years. Long before he met me, I was just his biggest score. The house sale alone was worth $3 million. The forged loans totaled $4.7 million. The credit cards, the phantom invoices, the embezzled funds, another $2 million. Nearly $10 million in fraud. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison. 12 years. As they led him away in handcuffs, he looked at me one last time. "You've ruined my life," he mouthed. "No, Derek, you ruined your own life. I just made sure you face the consequences." 8 months later, I'm sitting in my new office at Meridian National Bank. Yes, I work for my father now. Turns out I'm good at spotting fraud. Imagine that. I live in a small cottage by the water, nothing like the house Derek stole. But it's mine. Really mine. Every morning, I wake up to the sound of waves and remember that I survived. I more than survived. I thrived. Derek is in federal prison. His company is bankrupt. His reputation is destroyed. The penthouse, the cars, the suits, all gone. Liquidated to pay restitution. He writes me letters sometimes, forwarded through my lawyer. I don't read them. They go straight into a file marked evidence, just in case. Brittany had her baby, a girl. The bartender stepped up surprisingly. They're dating now, and he seems like a good guy. She sent me a thank you card last month. Strange, maybe, but I appreciated it. We were both victims of the same con man. I started a foundation for women experiencing financial abuse. We help them spot the signs, gather evidence, find lawyers. In 6 months, we've helped 47 women escape situations like mine. Sometimes, losing everything shows you what you truly had all along. Not the house, not the things, but strength. The strength to stand up, to fight back, to rebuild. My father and I are closer now. He still works too much, still struggles with emotions, but he showed up when I needed him. "You're tougher than I ever was," he told me last week. "Your mother would be so proud." I think about Derek sometimes. Wonder if he thinks about me in his cell. Does he regret it? Does he realize that his greed cost him everything? Or does he still think he's the victim? I'll never know, and honestly, I don't care. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. The wedding ring, my grandmother's diamond, was returned to me after the trial. I had it reset into a necklace. I wear it every day, not as a reminder of Derek, but as a reminder of my own strength. Some people asked why I didn't sell it, why I'd want to keep something with so many bad memories. But that ring was my grandmother's before it was ever on Brittany's finger. It represents generations of strong women who survived worse than a con man with a God complex. Last week, I gave a speech at a women's conference. The room was packed, 500 women who'd come to hear stories of survival and triumph. When I told them about Derek fainting in court, the room erupted in applause. He thought he'd married a victim. I said, he married a warrior who just didn't know it yet. If this story of justice resonated with you, please hit that like button right now. Share your own experience if something similar happened to you. You're not alone, and your story matters. Remember, the red flags are always there. The gaslighting, the financial secrecy, the sudden changes, the blame shifting. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Every week, I share stories of justice, survival, and triumph. Stories that remind us that we're stronger than we know. That justice may be slow, but it does come. And that sometimes the best revenge really is living well. Remember, You deserve someone who chooses you every single day, someone who sees your worth, respects your contributions, and would never, ever think of you as something to be used and discarded. You deserve truth, loyalty, and love that builds you up instead of tearing you down. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. You never know who's suffering in silence, who's being gaslit into thinking they're crazy, who needs to know that there's hope on the other side of betrayal. Together, we're stronger. Together, we survive. Together, we thrive. Thank you for watching, for sharing your stories in the comments, and for being part of this community. Until next time, remember, you are stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and worth more than anyone who would try to steal from you could ever understand. Stay strong, stay smart, and never, ever let anyone dim your light.